Hello, hello. Okay, let me move my stuff around. It's all over the place. All right, so we are going to talk about something pretty interesting today. I actually just read up on this today to just really strengthen my memory in it. It's been talked about a lot recently, and there's more and more information in regards to assessments, the way assessments are done, the way assessments are tallied up, if you will, and scores scored. And I'm going to talk about this and talk about this and talk about this because I'm finding the more and more I'm requesting assessments, which is across the board, every IEP right now, unless there's already been one done and possibly an IEE needs to be requested. But there's more and more data coming out in reference to assessment. So we're really going to address today special considerations for score interpretation and following educational disruption. So, it's an important thing that we're going to talk about. I'm going to reference the Wyatt 4, which is a newer assessment with the Wyatt, which is a great one. And I am speaking about, I actually posted, on this page, some information on the new Wyatt and what it added compared to the Wyatt 3, okay? And, but those of you who know me know the KTEA is my favorite, but the Wyatt subtests are great because they can sub for the few things. It's like 3-4 things because the Wyatt subtests they added more in the 4. So I really like to combine the two because why not give them every area to test in to be able to, for you to see the whole picture. So before I get started, my name is Raven Woods, and I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting. So if you are new catching me live, post a 1 below. You only get 3 times, so you might as well do it now. Tell me where you're from, and we want to get to know you, okay? So post a 1 below if you are new, first through third time catching me live. You're like, who are you, lady? You're crazy. I want to get to know you and the and what your child's about, maybe why you're watching my page. Feel free to share that if you want to. If you want a more smaller area to, actually it's really not smaller as far as people, but you're welcome to join the group, which is a private group. You can just stick it in the search bar and put Autism Mama Rocks IEP group. It's actually a pretty large group, but it's one of those things where it's a good group, and there's lots of collaboration. We don't always agree, but it's a really good group of people and moms and caregivers, and it's just a special place where you can talk about all things education, okay, or special education, I should say. So again, post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live, kind of like Angel did and Aaron. Welcome. And then we have our twos. The twos is if you are an oldie but goodie, you guys know what to do. All right. And if you care to share this, because there's other people out there that have no idea about assessments, about IEPs, about the different things that are out there, and the unfortunate games and crap that school systems play in order for you not to get what is needed and appropriate. But then they will claim that that's what they can offer, right? So let's get started. All right. So don't forget, post a 1 below. Tell me where you're from. All right. So Angel and Elizabeth, I'm calling you out. Tell me where you're from. I want to know. And then post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. I am still healing, so I am in my living room, not in my office. But you guys can see me. I think I have good lighting, right? All right. So we're going to first start with, I have a lot of notes here, guys, so you're going to have to bear with me. All right. Hi, Del Rose. Hi, Angels from California. Go figure. Oh, wow. Gabriella is right around the corner from me. And then we have, is it Constanza? Welcome, South Carolina. My son was born there. He was born in Charleston. And then Kelly from Minnesota. All right. All right. Oh my gosh, guys, I got all kinds of shit today for posting the whole blue autism awareness thing. I gotta just rant and rave about this for a second. Okay, first off, and was it on this page? No, it was on my group, I think. I'm not sure. Hi, Nicole. How are you? And then, yeah. Okay. So, yes, yeah, we're right around the corner from each other. But you're in South Carolina, but I love South Carolina. So nice. So we have Alicia. She's from North Carolina. Hello, hello. All right, you guys, I'm going to rant about this. All right. So sometimes I guess I need to realize that sometimes things are taken literally. And I apologize for that because you guys don't always know my sarcastic humor. And, in what I do with IEPs, I have to have a sarcastic, type of humor and way I go about things because the things I hear and see every single day is super depressing sometimes. And, I work with families just like you. And, I hear your stories and I completely associate and feel where you're coming from because I have been there and I still go through things. So, when I posted today, okay, I've posted it for years, and so, my daughter's older, all right, so, I posted the whole Light It Up Blue, okay. Well, I got, it shouldn't be about awareness, it should be about acceptance. Well, number one, of course it should. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to post about awareness. And I'll tell you why. So even though myself and all of us who have children with special needs, we want it to be awareness, right? We want it to be out there. I mean, 1 in 54 children born today is born with autism. That's the stats. But the thing is if we don't have awareness first, we're not going to get to acceptance. Look at it like this, and this is how I put it on my group. You know me and reading, right? I'm going to give you the analogy. With reading, in all of these IEPs I'm seeing, all right, I'm seeing what? Comprehension. But the kid can't even, they don't even know vocabulary yet. How the hell are you going to get them to comprehension? So you have to do this by steps for there to be true awareness. And if you're going to have true awareness, that means that they comprehend what autism is. And they first have to be aware of it. Not just, oh, everybody's heard of autism. Well, sure, that could be true. I don't know. But just because you have heard of autism doesn't know you know what that is. And hearing of autism is not awareness of autism. All right? So if you are aware of autism, you've heard of it, you've maybe had a discussion about it, you've maybe read up on it, you're not 100% proficient in it. You may not have a child, obviously, with it, but you are aware of it. You are aware of it out there. If a child was acting out, you are aware that it is out there, and more than likely you may say in your head, oh, that may be a child with autism, because you're aware of it, okay? Acceptance is accepting what you are aware of. You have to be aware of it. You have to know of it to accept it, all right? That doesn't mean, all right, because I posted recently, and I don't care if you want to hate on me for this, fine. Get off my page, get off my group. I don't give a crap. But, and I don't mean that literally, but just hear me out. So I posted recently, and this is on a personal thing, on my personal page, in reference to, I'll read it to y'all, okay, because I actually really love it. So I know I'm getting off topic, but I think this is important. All right. So I posted recently, and this is what it says. I'll tell you just a second. Let me scroll to it. Okay. It says, "Dear everyone, if you oppose birth control, don't use it. If you don't believe in evolution, don't study. If you don't like abortion, don't have one. If you don't want to marry someone of the same sex, don't. But you have no right to tell others how to live, learn, and love." I love that. And I love that because it's so true. If everybody stayed in their own lane and didn't worry about everybody else and everything else that's going on and focused on their stuff, then we're going to have one hell of a world. You know what I mean? So the same thing with autism, y'all. So, I, of all people, want autism and all disabilities to be something that people are aware of and that they accept it. And they accept it with open arms, and it's not weird or foreign to them or anything else. All right? I'll give you another example. All right? Some people nurse their babies, some people don't. But who the heck are we to say, oh, go to the bathroom if you're doing that? What? You know what I mean? So whether you nurse or you don't nurse, who are we to say, oh, go to the bathroom and nurse your baby? Do you eat in the bathroom? So it's one of those things where we have to be cautious and conscious of the things that we say and how we want people to interpret things. So if you want people to accept something, they have to know about it. They have to be taught to understand and to then be able to transfer that into acceptance. Just like reading, all right? A child has to understand vocabulary and a word. I was explaining this literally an hour ago in an IEP meeting. This is how it went. I said, no, because the first thing, okay, let's move to reading. And the first goal was comprehension. I said, no, absolutely not. I said, how do we start with comprehension when this child doesn't even know vocabulary, sight words, etc.? So we need to take a step back and we need to start on vocabulary. Cat, hat, boy, girl, straw, boat, etc. Once the child understands what those words mean, meaning what's a boat, then they understand that the boat is something that goes in water and they're able to explain what it means. Then what happens? They know the word and they know what that word means. They're able to formulate that picture of the boat. So once they can say, oh, a boat floats on water. Okay, well, then you can expand that and say, well, what does a boat do on water? And then they can say, well, and then they go into whatever it is they want to say. I love it when kids just elaborate and they use their imagination. And they say, these are things I've heard as just being a teacher of, oh, the boat, floated, this is what they said, on blue water, and the boat had people and whatever it is they want to say. That's what I want to hear, because now I understand that they get it. Not only do they know what the word, they can read the word boat, but then they can tell me what a boat is, and because they painted that picture, right? You know me in reading. All right, but guess what? What is painting that picture? All right, so boat is autism, and what is it we need to do? We need to be able to paint that picture of what does boat mean? What does autism mean? That's acceptance. All right? Then we move on to anything else in regards to autism and what we want people to learn. But just knowing the word is awareness. They have to know the word first. Then they move on to acceptance. And that's when they're able to formulate in their brain what a boat does, right? So hopefully that's a good analogy. We read the word boat, and then what does the boat do? Okay, the boat floats in the water. The boat is blue. The boat is white, whatever. And, then you move on to, the boat has people in it, and the boat has this and that. And kids just move on and talk on and on with their memory and their imagination, and they just run with it, right? Well, the same thing with autism, okay? So when I post something, I try to be conscious of it. And so for those who are like, oh, autism awareness is bad, and, we have to have acceptance and blah, blah, blah. Of course, I agree with you. We do need acceptance. That does need to happen, but it has to be done in steps. It doesn't just go from autism to acceptance. It goes from autism to awareness to acceptance. There's stepping stones, because people don't just jump to acceptance if they don't know what something is. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, someone said something along the lines of, oh, a lighted up blue has to do with boys have it more than girls. Well, that's fact. They do. Okay? Statistics and facts and science shows, and I have a girl, that boys have autism. There's more boys who have autism more than girls. That's just fact. Okay? And then someone said, what did they say? It was in reference to Autism Speaks. All right? Well, I have to agree with that one. I do not agree with what Autism Speaks does. I have no opinion that I'm going to voice out loud in reference to what they do. I feel like, I will say, I feel like they're very, they're not, I don't like to talk bad about different places, so I'm trying to be tactful. But I can just say, I'm just going to say that I don't agree with a lot of what they do. I'll just leave it at that, okay? But I don't think they're bad. I don't think, it is what it is. They're not my cup of tea, So trying to take a picture that is about really just getting awareness about autism out there, okay, that leads to acceptance, which is what we all want. Taking that and making it into a negative, not cool. Just my thoughts. All right, so let's move on. So we're going to talk about grade-based and age-based scores, okay? Hey guys, how are you? Thanks, Erin. So we have Del Rose. Hi, Miss. And we read her last name, right, Del Rose, and we're like, how do you say that? I had to ask her. So true. Love that quote, Miss Woods. You're right on. Thank you. How can I share that? What quote? Oh, what I just read to you. I can post it. I can post it here. Okay? I'll post it for y'all. Constanza says, yes, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be some people who don't agree, and that's okay. I'm totally fine with that, and I respect that. So, but I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't put out there as in, I don't want acceptance. I mean, I'm a mother of a child with autism. Why would I not? But I also understand the process, and the process is you have to accept something before you have to be aware of something before you accept something. Okay? You have to know about it. You have to know what it means. We have a lot of people out there that just don't understand what autism is or what it means or what it does to somebody, how it affects them. And so it's important in my mind to be open to teaching people, about it. I don't think that most people don't want to learn to accept. I think it's people just don't know. Kind of like with IEPs, some people just don't know, and they have to be educated about it, and then they're able to accept it. It's it's just a process, if that makes sense. Okay. So consider how the age-based and grade-based norms differ. Okay, we're talking about assessments here. All right, so scores based on age norms compare the examinee's performance to peers of the same age. The examinee is your student, okay? However, peers in the same age group can be at least 2 different grades and have different amounts of curriculum exposure. So here's what this means. This is really, really great. So how your child or any child can go into kindergarten, and I know my children, they had summer birthdays. So they went into kindergarten at 5, like just baby 5, right? And then you have kids that have, birthdays like later on in the year. So they're 6 when they come into kindergarten. All right. Well, if an age-based norm assessment was done, it wouldn't be accurate because it wouldn't be based on the same age, because they're not. All right. You have 6-year-olds and you have 5-year-olds. All right. So that's important to understand. And then it goes on and, it elaborates in talking about this, and it talks about, one important factor that contributes to the variability of the norm samples at younger ages is that age requirements for kindergarten vary, and that's important to understand. All right, and then you have parents like myself who have held their children back in kindergarten, and so again, you have different ages. All right, so and that's in almost all grades. So it's really important to understand this, because if it's being the assessments being compared to other students of that age, you want to look at if it's really that accurate, and how accurate is it, and how does that reflect on your child and how they scored. All right. So in addition, the time of testing and your child's birth date affect the interpretation of age norms. All right. So basically, your child is tested early in the fall. Let's just say they're just tested early in the fall, and their age is matched with peers primarily at the same grade and in the grade level that they're in. All right. So, however, if the child is tested later in that trimester, okay, or after their birthday, then the age-based norm primarily include children in the same grade and one grade level above. So then you have two different ages. Does that make sense? I know it's a little confusing. All right, so just ask questions if you have questions. All right, it's important because many norm-based tests, which I still like, all right, you have to look at how they're scoring it, okay? And there's many ways to score it, but a lot of times schools will only post one way, and it's like trickery, all right? So grade norms, okay, so now we're moving from age to grade. Compare the child's performance to peers of the same grade and trimester, which means that curriculum exposure is consistent. All right. So peers in the same grade and group can vary, and particularly in the upper grades. All right. So the primary advantage. All right. Hey, Lori, how are you? Hi, Jess. How are you? So the primary advantage of age norms is that they can be compared with other age-based tests. All right, and help with and reflect the skills of children who are young or old for that grade. All right, so it's a little bit more effective and accurate. Age norms mix examinees, meaning mixed students. So, it's different ages, and, that's good. All right, because if you're just sticking with an age and you're going off of that, then you're going to be in this kind of limbo, inaccurate area, because children are not the same age in the same grade. All right. And this is something that I have not thought of. And I'm like, oh my God, when I read it today, and, I do a lot of research. I love reading up on things and things that are going to affect us and our kids and IEPs. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I didn't think about this, and all the assessments I'm doing right now. I'm like, okay, this is really important to take note of, because how they are assessing your child is important, as we know, as I name many of the assessments. But how those assessments are looked at and scored is just as important. Okay? So, however, okay, this is changing from the primary advantage of age norms and compared to children, okay, with other age-based tests, and help reflect the skills of the children who are young or old for that grade. So I'm just repeating that. However, age norms mix children with different amounts of curriculum exposure. So there's the negative there. All right, so see how there was, there's some positives to both, but there's also negatives, and this has to be taken into consideration when looking at scoring and looking at, what is going to be the most appropriate way. Jake, it's my dog. The most appropriate way to really get a good look at the whole picture. And that's so important to me. You know, I say that to school systems and teams all the time. Paint that picture for me. If they're telling me about something and I want more clarity, I want more understanding, I want them to paint a picture for me. If it's hard for them, which it is a lot, you're putting them on the spot. But if you can't paint that picture for me, then you're not convincing me that what you're doing is appropriate for my child. You know, I caught a special ed teacher, case manager, on off guard today. She actually left the meeting for a hot minute because she was crying, you know, and I felt bad. I felt bad that she left and that she was crying. And I felt bad that she took things personally. But I did not feel bad about what I said at all. I said it again and I repeated it when she came back. Because these are the things you have to do in IEP meetings. That's what advocating is all about. You cannot tiptoe around people's feelings. All right? This isn't having a conversation with a friend or, you know, trying to be tactful in how you're coming across when you're speaking about your child's education and what's gone wrong and what needs to be done for it to go right. And then you be so focused on being tactful in a way when you're just pissed off because things screwed up and they screwed up or whatever happened. You can't be thinking about that. You have to just stick with the point. And the point is whatever it is, okay? And you need to address it. And, you know, she was caught off guard and she was not prepared. And, you know, her goals were not good at all. She made a comment that I thought was a little bit funny, but I did call her out on it. All right. She said, because we first started, let me just give an example. We first started on the FBA, but they called it a FBA review. So it was a FBR. All right. And, I explained to them everything that was not right in it and about the ABCs, your antecedent, behavior, and consequence, and how you have to have also a alternate behavior, if you will, to teach the child in a positive way to replace that negative behavior. So I was explaining that. Under antecedent strategies, she had that all wrong. She didn't even have what antecedent strategies means, which is, you know, what is happening, what is going on that needs to change in that environment, okay? And so strategies are put in place in which change happens to that environment in any which way it needs to change for that child's triggers to not be triggered, for them to not be triggered and that behavior to happen, okay? So the antecedent is, where is that happening? What is going on for that behavior to happen? All right. Is there a child that's triggering your child? Is it the teacher? Is it the teacher's requesting something? Is it the teacher's tone? Is it, you know, a light sound? You know how some of the lights, like if you go to Costco, or some just have that like flickering sound, kind of buzzing sound, that will set kids off. So it's figuring out, the antecedent is figuring out that puzzle of what is causing that darn behavior, which is so frustrating. All right. And then antecedent strategies are things that you really want to put in place to really get a grasp of what's going on. And then also you are putting strategies in place that are just changing what is happening. All right. So, and you can look up antecedent strategies. Here, I'll look it up for you real quick. And it'll kind of explain certain things to you. So let me just kind of give you an idea. All right. So antecedent strategies are preventative, this is the official term, are preventative strategies that can be implemented in school, home, or daycare centers to reduce the occurrence of problem behavior. Fundamentally, these strategies focus on proactively modifying the environment. Like I was just saying, you're changing the environment basically. All right, so modifying the environment to remove elements that may increase or trigger problem behavior. All right, so just what I was saying, you're changing the antecedent, which is something within the environment that's setting that child off. You're trying to figure that out in the antecedent. The antecedent strategy, all right, so here's just a tip for y'all, is what is it that needs to change? All right, figuring it out and making those changes and tweaks so that you can then decrease the behavior that is interfering with their education. Okay, so moving forward, all right, so I felt bad for the teacher. Long story short, you got to cut to the chase. You got to say it as it is, and you have to be very straightforward about it, and you can't sugarcoat it, and you can't be so much thinking about being nice or tactful or all these things that it disrupts what really needs to be said. Okay? Because change is only going to happen when you're transparent about what's going on, and that needs to come out as is, how it is, what is happening, and what is fact. All right? And people take things offensively, and that's okay. And it's also okay for them to get upset, and it's okay for them to take it personally because that's on them. That's not your fault that they're taking it personally. You didn't say anything accusatory in reference to them on a personal level. You're talking about your child. You're talking about your child's education. Whatever it is that they did that may have impacted that needs to be stated. Because if it needs to change, they have to know what was done that was not productive or effective. Okay? So don't be so caught up in being tactful that you don't get out what you need to get out, because then change doesn't happen. All right? And the saying of you get more with honey than you do with vinegar does not work in IEPs. All right? There's no such thing. All right? In the real world, absolutely. In IEPs, no. All right? It's almost the opposite, to be quite honest. The nicer you are, the more you're taken advantage of. Is that always? No. Is that most of the time? 100%. Okay? So let's move on. So we're going to move on. And so primary advantage of age-based norms is that they can be compared with other age-based tests. And that helps in reflecting the skills of your child who could be older or younger for that grade. All right. But the norms that are mixed, intermingled together of the age, all right, they have different amounts of curriculum exposure. Therefore, how they test is going to be different. All right. So we have to watch the scoring, because when a child is compared to another child or children, scoring, in my opinion, is not where it needs to be. It's disrupted, would probably be a good word for it. When you're interpreting age-based and grade-based norms, all right, you have to consider the characteristics of norm group in relation to your child, all right, and the time of the testing, to the extent the student is being compared to peers of younger or older age, and what they've been exposed to. What in their curriculum have they been exposed to in comparison to their neighbor, to the other child? How do you come up with a score and compare average, low, below average, above average, if the children themselves are so different? You see? So it's important. So grade-based norms, let's kind of sum that up, all right? I'm not talking for an hour today. Okay, shit, I'm at 34 minutes. I'm going to really aim this at like 45 minutes, all right, today, because I've been talking a long time this week. All right, so grade-based norms is testing near the beginning or end of the year, all right, of a semester, and it's a norm group, all right? is the other thing you want to look at for consideration in interpreting these assessments is in reference to grade-based or norm, age-based, is the student, and this is in reference to grade-based, is the student being compared to same grade peers who most likely and are mostly, younger or older? That's a question to ask. These are questions. All right. Or does the child have atypical educational history, such as retention, skipping a grade, a gap, or a disruption in education? You want to know these things. Just like, is the child being compared to same grade peers who are most likely younger or older? You want to know these things for grade-based norms. All right, and age-based norms, you want to know, is the child near the beginning or are they near the end of their normative age group? Okay? Meaning, like, did the child just have a birthday, or is the child about to have a birthday? Or did they have a birthday, or are they about to have a birthday? So you have to pay attention to that. And then consider the time of the testing in reference to the child's birth date. And is the child being compared to same age peers who have been exposed to more or less curriculum? You want to know that. Is it the same? Is it equal? You want to know. Is it more? How much more? Is it less? How much less? You want to know some of these questions, because is it really appropriate to do either of these? It's a good thing to know, but it's something that you want to consider and understand that it can be flawed, okay? And also, is the child's performance in math a focus of the evaluation? And math is heavily dependent on grade rather than age. Okay? So that's something to take into consideration. My daughter has finally got to the point where she doesn't get down on herself about the testing and is finally starting to be proud of herself from the scoring that she is getting now, because I tell her not to worry about what anyone else gets and that anyone else says. She is so proud of herself now because she knows she is doing better than her last score. I love seeing my kids grow. They both have IEPs. Well, that's awesome, because I don't think that children should be compared to each other. I'll tell you a pet peeve. I hate how pediatricians, and I shouldn't use the word hate, that's a strong word. I don't like how pediatricians have, what is that thing called? Where they measure 90 percentile, 80 percentile, 70 percentile. I mean, shoot, I was always in the 90 percentile. What does that mean? I guess for my weight and my height and I don't know. What does that mean? And if a child's at 50 percentile, does that mean they're like halfway, or does that mean they're average? I mean, was I above average because I was 90 percentile? Does that mean that I was fat because I was at 90%? I mean, what does that mean? So if you're at 25 percentile, what does that mean? That I'm less than, or I'm not developing as appropriate, or, because they don't sit and say, oh, you're at 25 percentile. This is what needs to happen. Or, oh, your child's at 90 percentile. This is what needs to happen, So it's one of those things where, do you see what I mean? Like, it's pointless, really, It's so dumb, those charts, kind of like, oh, for your height, you need to be this weight. My bone structure may be completely different from you, and we could be the same height. But we're not supposed to weigh this damn same. Come on now. I mean, you'd have people walking around this world who are 200 pounds, 150 pounds, 100 pounds, 125. I mean, it doesn't make sense, So, everybody's different. Everybody's going to weigh different. Everybody's going to look different, and there's all these different things. And it sounds funny. I'm laughing because it sounds funny. But in reality, that's how they're doing the testing if they're doing grade-based or age-based, which they do. So if we're going to talk about that and we're going to talk about what that looks like and how it can be flawed, then we got to talk about in relation to life. And life, we talk about what? Those charts of, how we're growing. I mean, what percentile am I now? I'm not a kid anymore, but is there some sort of percentile I'm supposed to be going off of? Or do I have to go through that chart where it says, okay, you're 5'6" or you're 5'5", so you need to weigh 140 pounds? So you have to really look at how does that make sense to you? How do you process it? And if it doesn't make sense, then don't compare. And so when you're assessing a child and you're really wanting to know what their cognitive ability is, their IQ, why the hell would you compare that to someone else? Why would you compare a child's IQ or their cognitive ability or their ability to do certain aspects of academics to their neighbor? Who cares? Know what they know. Stick with that. Keep it simple. Make sure your assessments are factual to what your child can or cannot do. In no way, shape, or form should you put any emphasis into the comparison of or to the comparison of someone else. Okay? So whether that be grade, age, name, date, I don't care. Don't look at the comparison of. Look at where did your child score, in what area, and what is that assessment's scoring, and what does that look like? So a lot of assessments are created by Pearson. That is who owns and has created many different assessments that our children are given. Look it up. What does Pearson say is the average for that assessment in which they created? What is the above average? What is that scoring? What does that look like? What is it that makes your child low or lower than the average? How do they base that number? Where do they come up with that number? Find those things out because you want to know exactly where your child is and where they are and where they're going. Are they progressing? Are they regressing? And if so, why? Okay, because that's the whole point of putting our kids through an IQ test or a cognitive ability or a appropriate assessment that is going to look at their attention, their working memory, their visual memory, how their processing skills are. What is it that they're taking in and retaining and then able to process and then express? All right, that bringing in and out, it's like breath. All right, the in, out, and go, it's continuous. What they bring in, they have to put out. All right, so if they're bringing in information, they have to then put that information onto what? Paper, an assessment, and be able to, that's why reading, writing, and written expression is all based off working memory and how that child is processing what is coming in and how it comes out. All right, because how it comes in is one thing. It could come in perfectly, but if it doesn't process up here, how's it going to come out? It can't. So that's where a lot of people are getting confused because, you have that speech area of expressive and receptive language. So you're receiving information. It's like, this telegraph thing, you're receiving information and then you're having to express it out. Well, you can't express it out if you're not processing it appropriately. All right. And, I think I told you guys, I was in an accident. I was hit by a truck and I was, walking across the street, and how with a TBI, you don't retain information in an appropriate way. And I didn't for a period of time as my brain was healing. So I was able for a period of time to see what our kids see in such a big way. I saw just a portion. They deal with that all the time, every single day. Do you know how crazy it made me to take information in, but not be able to either express it, or I was able to hear and have it formulated in my brain, but it was hard to then deliver, or I would forget as I was speaking, And so how our brains interpret things, how they process things, how the ability of our brains to do certain things that show what we know, is so important. And it's what everything is based off of with our kids. In assessments, how they're assessed, and then at the end, what does that do? That's your child's present levels, the meat and potatoes of their IEP. That's what creates their services, accommodations, modifications, everything that you want for your child, a one-on-one, okay? You want a one-on-one for your child for what? Safety, behavior, and redirection. Always memorize that. I want a one-on-one for my child for safety, behavior, and redirection. Do not elaborate. Okay, you can give examples, 3 examples of each. 3 examples of safety, 3 examples of behavior, and 3 examples of redirection. Redirection, by the way, is focus, all right? So if a child is not focused, let's just take ADHD, for example, and, their brains are all over the place. And a lot of times, children with ADHD are extremely intelligent, all right? And then you have their brains running a mile a minute, right? So they have a hard time focusing, all right? So they have to be redirected into, that arena so that they can then be proficient, do their work, and get things done and have educational success, right? So we need to really be mindful. Someone said that my microphone's all messed up. Can you guys hear me okay? So it's just really important that you guys pay attention to how your child's assessed. Make sure you ask a ton of questions and are very clear on how that's done. They don't want to tell you. They don't. All right? They want to talk to you in foreign language, and you are supposed to understand it. You are. You're supposed to know this stuff, right? Seriously. And you need to make sure that you are clear. And if you're not, don't let them make you feel stupid. Ask that question 50 times if you have to, until you fully understand what is being assessed and how the scoring came about, because you want the real scoring. If you're anything like me, I don't give a crap how my child compares to I don't care if it's the whole freaking United States children that are a certain age. I don't care. What I care about is where is she, what is her level, and what do I need to do, and what does the school need to do to make sure that she continues to progress and get to where she needs to be to the best of her ability. All right? So that's really, in my opinion, what's important. If you're worried about your child being compared to other students and having age-based norms, or, and that's important to you, that's fine. But really what's important is focusing on, kind of like I was saying, stay in your own lane. Where are you? Where is your child? Where do they need to be? And what do you need to do to get them there? All right? I don't care about what so-and-so's doing, So if we all worried about ourselves, we'd be in a much better place. So let's not worry about those other assessments that worry about a child's age, that worry about a child's size, that worry about, what this child's doing at this age. No, focus on your child. What does your child need? What is the most appropriate thing for them? What is it that they need in order for their IEP to be individualized and so specific to their needs that they can't not progress? That's where we need to be. And those are the assessments that we need to be focused on, is the assessments that's specific to our child. That's why I name the assessments. That is why, there you go. That is why I name the assessments, because I want that assessment to be so specific to my child or your child, okay, that there is no hesitation. And if there is, you ask for an IE. But there's no hesitation as to where your child is. Okay, that your child has working memory issues, or that your child has processing issues, or that your child struggles in reading, writing, and math, or whatever it is. Okay? Because at the end of the day, isn't the whole point of an assessment, an IQ, cognitive ability, for you to know exactly where your child is in order to be able to create an IEP that's so individualized to their specific needs, to where their PLAF is right, their present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. And then with that, the meat and potatoes of their IEP, they then can have all the services, accommodations, modifications that they possibly need, because that IEP is so specific to them, not other children, not other kids' grades, not other kids' ages, nobody else but them. Okay? All right. So the school told me years ago to hold my daughter back, and I told them absolutely not. And her old school was so mad when I told them, no, I'm not about to make my kids feel stupid for being held back. Gotcha. Hi, Gina. How are you? Thanks for sharing so much, Renee. Are you new to this page? Don't forget, if you're new, post a 1 below. First through third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. All right, so Gina says, okay, safety redirection behavior. Got it. You're funny. All right, so one more thing. According to IDEA, okay, section 300.309, and this is from 2004, not the 1997. This is the updated. And many state level guidelines, the eligibility team may determine more domain areas. Standards include the oral language and academic skills and abilities that students are expected to demonstrate at various points in time. Goes into more detail in reference to some skills developed primarily with age, whereas skills depend more on grade, all right, whereas other skills depend more on grade level curriculum. And that is true, okay? So there is a place and time, just like everything else in this world, right, for a child that needs to be compared, okay, for it to be age-based or grade-based, and that to be, put in place, okay? So make sure that you really ask a lot of questions, and that you have a good grasp of things. And if you don't, that's okay. Keep learning, and it's going to come and click, I promise. It takes forever, but I promise. And, know that this isn't something that we all know. We don't. All right, someone didn't like what I said. Look, always one person. If ever someone doesn't like something I say, it's always one person. All right, so another thing. All right, so remember I said that I was going to talk about, and don't let them try to get out of testing. They tried to, oh, absolutely. They, of course. They will do all kinds of things to not assess certain areas, and you have to be adamant. You cannot give up. You can't, I will literally argue for 2-3 hours in an IEP meeting over what assessments. We can argue about it all day. I don't care, but that's important. What those assessments say is so important, and what ones are done is so important. If not, why are we doing them? So, there's various different assessments for various different reasons, and given for various different children for different reasons. They need to be individualized, meaning with the variety of assessments that are given, we need to be more mindful in which ones we provide as educators. Okay? One thing I mentioned today is I'm not going to agree to something just because you're more comfortable doing that. If you can't do it, then we can find somebody who can. And in order to provide FAPE, if the school system is not qualified or familiar with, etc., an assessment that your child needs because it's more specific to them and their disability, then challenge them and say, if you're not capable of doing this, or it can be on a nicer end of if you're not able to do this because this isn't something you're familiar with, which is fine. I have no problems with that. But if it's not something you're familiar with, then somebody else needs to do it that is familiar with it, because this is the most efficient test in order to be a productive test. All right, it's an efficient one. It needs to be efficient. It needs to be good. It needs to flow. It needs to be a good test, but it also needs to be one that is productive and effective. All right, that it needs to have some sort of result at the end of the day that is going to provide the information that we need in order to create what we need to create, which is the IEP. Okay, so important. So when comparing Wyatt 4, which is the new, okay, Wyatt, all right, it's a new one, the most recent, results with age-based, meaning cognitive ability, language, etc. Test results as part of a comprehensive evaluation, age-based norms, are necessary so that all test results are being compared to a similar reference group. So here we go with that. So in response to this, because the Wyatt 4 is a good test, remember I said I like the KTEA, as long as your child's verbal. I like the KTEA given with the subtests of the Wyatt, because the Wyatt has about 3 or 4 subtests that the KTEA doesn't cover. And it's very minor things, but why not know it, right? So I like to ask for the KTEA and then these 4 subtests. And with the Wyatt 4 coming out, there's more things. So I love that. I mean, if you want to get the whole picture, then why not do the assessments that are going to capture the whole picture? And in my opinion, you know, take it or leave it, why put a child through assessments if you're not going to just grasp and get hold of the whole picture, so that we can not have to ask for an IEE, that we can just, you know, get the scoring, talk about it, review it, figure out what really needs to be put in place based off of the deficits, and really run with that versus, you know, have this fighting going on, which happens all the time, about assessments and the productivity of it and how it is provided. And all of the assessments that I'm seeing recently, many of them are unable, the assessor, the psychologist, or, you know, there's diagnosticians as well, that are unable to finish and complete the assessment. Well, do you know what that means? If they're unable to complete an assessment, typically, all right, the reasoning is based off of either behavior or the inability to do it. But that's the point of the assessment. You don't need to stop. You just need to document what is known and what is not. What age level, what grade level did the child stop? Then you're able to get that GE score. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's very confusing. Post below any questions. So if you're just joining and you need to watch the replay, post a 1 below if it's your first or third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. I'm sorry that one person gave me a frown face. Sorry. Not everybody's going to agree. But I think it's important to understand what it means. And I'm pretty straightforward about it. So the reason for that is because I want you and your child to have the scoring that they need to have. Okay? I want your child to, I want the reflection of what they are doing, what they're being assessed in, that it's accurate and that it's individualized to them, good or bad, no matter what the assessment is. I want to know what it is, good or bad, because that is how we're going to get them help. And that is how I can really fight for a child, is if I get a good assessment. You know, that's why I will say to a parent, you know what, I always say, if it were my child, this is what I would do. That's what I would say, you know, because I treat all of my clients' children, and they will tell you this, as if they're my own. And I will only request and do things as if it were my own child. And I'm a fighter. And I will do anything for my child, just like you. And so I'm just not passive about it, which can be good and bad, but it is what it is. I want you to just understand the importance of assessments, okay? Because right now, it's crazy because assessments are always important, always. But just throw in, hey Leanne, hey Kristen, hey BB, Candy. I did not forget you. I'm going to get to your question, and Kimberly, okay, and Gina. But just hear me here. It's not that right now is assessments mean more than anything else. It's not so much that. What it is many of our children have not been physically in school for the whole year. Okay? So more now than ever do assessments need to be done. Just because. All right? So, and it's almost like unless your assessments are within, under a year, I would say 9 months and under, then your child needs an assessment. All right? And it's super important to do. Okay? And, what you're going to find, all right, is how, even if your child was assessed, let's just say, hypothetically, a year ago, just a year, I guarantee you're going to see a change if you got them assessed now. I guarantee you. All right? Our kids change clothes pretty much every year, right? Until they stop growing. Their brains are still growing. They're going to change. Then we had COVID, of all things. And, there's different dynamics and things that are going on in our lives. And kids change. They grow. They expand. Sometimes it's, progression. Sometimes it's regression. But either way, don't you want to know? And either way, I always say, meet your child where they are. All right? Who cares where they are? If your child is higher than my child, that is amazing. I think that is wonderful. But the thing is I can't compare my child to your child. All right? I have to look at my child and find out where is she, meet her where she is, and figure out what do I need to do or ensure that the school system is doing in order for her to make progress. And I've told you guys this many times, and I'm going to tell you again, and then I'm going to hop off here. Look, I'm at an hour now. Here's the most important thing, all right, is at the end of the day, what happens? Our kids need to, when they're 18 or older, if you keep them until they're 21 or whatever, they need to be able to be productive adults and to be able to function in the best way possible in daily life, all right, with everything going on in today's life. They need to be able to function as best as possible. We want to set them up for success, all right? And no matter where your child is, you have to meet them where they are. You cannot take them somewhere else. They have to be where they are. You have to meet them where they are. And when you do that, you create a pathway for them to make progress. And what I mean by that is that pathway needs to be focused on their individual needs of where they're at right now so that that pathway can be set up for success. And that pathway needs to be very specific. It needs to be very itemized to them, which the school systems hate doing. And which, you know what that means? It means they actually have to change things up that might be inconvenient. And I'm sorry, I get it. I know it's inconvenient for teachers. We have to tweak things and twerk things and whatever. I get it. But at the same time, you got to ask yourselves, do I need to focus on maybe an inconvenience, or do I need to focus on progression that needs to happen more than regression? Okay? I don't want to hear anymore. I'm not really sure why your child regressed, but we're seeing XYZ. What do you mean you're not sure? You're the one educating them. Those are things I don't want to hear. I want to hear, this is where your child is. This is where we're starting. This is where we're going. This is the goals. And then you be just as nitpicky as I am in how those damn goals are written. You should hear me. I am very, 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 very picky. It has to be written in a certain way. All right. I'm very picky about that. And, I mean, no joke. I'm really, really, really picky about how a goal is written. Like, anal, crazy picky. Because I want it so specific and so itemized and written with flow and not just the whole SMART thing, of course. Yes, it needs to be specific and measurable and actionable and realistic and time limited. Yeah. I know. I know how to do that part. But even more important, in my opinion, is it needs to flow, and everybody 10 years and older need to be able to understand exactly what that goal means when they read it. Because, in all honesty, it has got to be understood by all parties, by everyone that works with them. And a lot of times, they don't understand how to implement it. I mean, we had a teacher today who didn't even know how to do an FBA and didn't know what antecedent strategies were. So she wrote, why is the special ed teacher writing the freaking BIP? Doesn't make sense. She didn't know how. She had no idea. No clue. She had no idea what antecedent strategies are. Well, the antecedent is one of the most important parts. That's what happens before that behavior. And then what happens before that behavior is where the antecedent strategies come in and what you're going to do in reference to fixing that. It's important. Very important. So you have to have the right people that are the most highly trained and qualified writing these things and assessing our kids. And so, we had asked this teacher, I'm going to sum up with this. We had asked this teacher, for her credentials and for her, she said that we asked her what her training was in writing BIPs because it was very clear that she didn't know what she was doing. And so, I messaged the mom. I said, hey, ask this. And then I supported it and I said, we want to see what training you've had. We want to see how many hours it was. We want to know what the name of that training was. And she was like, she did this. What? Why do you mind me asking why you want that? Sure, you can ask that. The reason I want it is because you don't know how to write a BIP. You shouldn't be writing a BIP because you have no clue how to write a BIP. So I'm curious about the training that you had that didn't train you, and you are now writing BIPs for children who have behavior problems and issues that are affecting their education. So with a BIP that is written incorrectly, that is unproductive. It is not going to be okay because guess what? It's going to backfire and it is not going to work. And then we're going to have a student that has increased behaviors based off the behavior plan not being implemented with fidelity or making any kind of sense. And I mean, no joke. She had no clue what antecedent strategy was, which means she has no idea how to change the environment in which triggers the child and creates the behavior. How huge is that? Now, I'm not calling this teacher stupid in any way. I'm not saying in any way that this teacher is an idiot or anything like that. Honestly, what I actually said to the parent, and I had messaged her on WhatsApp while we were going through the meeting, my exact words were this. I feel really bad for the teacher because the teacher should not be writing the BIP. Typically, they don't write BIPs. And the fact that the upper administration, whether that be the principal or administration at the administrative level in office, is making her do this. That's what's happening. She's being told to do it, having no experience, and problems are arising. That's what's happening. I know that's what's happening. And I said to the mom, I feel bad. I feel bad that she is having to do this and having to take the brunt of what's going on. And that is not fair. But at the same time, I can't make that my problem. So do you see how there's I have the compassion. I feel bad for her. I feel bad that the teacher is taking the brunt of the bullshit that's going on when it's not really her job to do. It is not a teacher's job to do a BIP, to write up a BIP at all. And then she's taking the brunt of me and the wrath of me because she can't write a BIP for shit and has no idea, had no idea how to even stick up for herself as I'm coming at her full force for writing a BIP that is completely setting a child up for failure. My position with that is, if teachers are going to make the conscious decision to listen to the person, I don't care who it is, that is telling them to write a BIP that they don't have experience in, they are making the conscious decision. If I get a hold of them, no holds barred. It's what I say is what I say. So if you got to leave the meeting crying, you made the decision to set the child up for failure, not me. And that's an important thing to think about as parents. I talk to parents all the time. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be nasty. I feel bad, blah, blah, blah. But that at the same time, you're calling me saying, this isn't working. My child's not making progress. I'm so upset. I'm really just beside myself because, my child's 3-4 years behind and, all the things that we go through. So you have to make that conscious decision. It's not about, oh, let me just be mean to people. It's not about that. It's about, you have to be able to stick up for what is right when it comes to serving your individual child and doing the right thing to serve them best. And that is getting them everything that they need that is going to set them up for success and for progression. And in order to do that, you have to fight and you have to make yourself crazy and you have to cry and you have to have anxiety. And these are all the emotions and things that we as parents go through. I know I have, and I go through them with my parents that I work with all the time. So be okay with not always being nice in this situation and look at the end result. What's more important to you? And getting a good grasp on assessments, getting a good grasp on what they mean and mean for your child, and it could be different for all of us, and getting a good grasp on what, from that point forward, once you have that result, hopefully it's adequate and with fidelity and done with fidelity, your next focus, I promise I'm going to end it here, your next focus after the assessment, after you know what your child's deficits are, your next focus is on the how. Not always, the who can be second to that, but the how. What do I mean by that? How the education, the academics, the core curriculum, whatever you want to call it, is delivered to them. That is the most crucial piece aside from getting the assessment and knowing what their deficits are. All right, is how it's implemented. Just like this BIP I was talking about, where the teacher had no idea what a antecedent strategy is. A lot of people don't. But the point is she was the one responsible because she wrote it. And you need to make sure that who's writing these things and who is implementing them and providing it to your child, that they know what the heck they are doing. And if they don't, get them the hell off your team. No joke. I'm going to end there. All right. Hour and 15 minutes. I totally sucked at time management. It's something I'm working on, guys. I am working on it. Time management skills is a problem for me because I like to get it all out there and I can't throw up on you guys each time. So I got to try to have these time management skills and try to stick within 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to try harder next time, I promise. Okay. Hey, Faye, how are you? Okay, so going back up here, Renee says, I don't know how I came across you, but I needed to hear you tonight. I love that. Gina says, I hate the fact when you get test scores of percentages, but you don't know or you don't get the age your child is on at the present time. Okay, that you can specifically ask. I ask it every time. On what grade level is this on? Have you ever heard, of a child, oh, your child's getting an 86, your child's getting a 92 in math and whatever. Okay, cool, that's awesome. He's got a 92 in math. On what grade level? All right, so Kimberly says, and don't let them try to get out of testing. Yes. Candy says, my so is 8 with ADHD. Oh, my son is 8 with ADHD and sensory, and I have tried 3 times to get an IEP for him through the school, and they keep saying he don't need it, but he has in-school therapy. I'd have to know more about your situation. You're welcome to contact me through WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, and preferably WhatsApp, and I will get to know your situation a little bit better, but I can't really answer that because I don't know anything about your son, other than you're saying he has ADHD and sensory concerns. But I really would have to know how does those deficits and those disabilities affect his progression and his impact of disability in the educational setting. So Leanne, hello. Kristen, BB, Jessica, hello. Gina says, that is what I'm trying to figure out. Where my child is. I don't understand the percentages on the scores. I need to know age range in the areas he gets services in. Yes. Going through that now. Is it regression? I checked into medical aspect and everything looked normal now. I think it is more sensory. I got you. Erin says, I'll second that. I know firsthand how picky, which is a good thing, this woman is. Yes, I am. And Leanne says, good evening. Hello. All right. Thanks for catching me live, guys. Post a 1 below if you're catching the replay. If it's your first through third time catching me live, post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. And thanks so much for hanging in there with me all this time. And hopefully you guys heard me. I heard that I was like a little bit scratchy in how you can hear me or how it was coming out. So I apologize for that if that was funky. And make sure you post your questions below. If you want to set up a discovery call, you can catch me on WhatsApp and make sure that you message me there and we'll set up a free discovery call, okay? And go through things then. You're welcome, Del Rose, and I will see you guys soon. Oh, and Erin, if you want to post the WhatsApp, that would be awesome. And I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.